been pretty proud, like, we've been lucky. I've been telling Aaron that we've been lucky. I'm blessed that we know we have done so many projects and not that many things have come back, like, in terms of like legal matters, things like that. But we always have to, we've been dealing with a lot of different kind of projects now. You guys have been communicating more with clients, you guys are to a different level in terms of communication and things like that. So we felt the need to do a training. I don't think it will take more than half an hour unless, you guys don't think certain things. But it's an open training for us. And it's important for us to know this thing. So, and this might be like a series of trainings, but this one's gonna take there are a couple of things we just want to talk about. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to talk about concepts and definitions, items to pay attention, drawings to design, simple projects, lessons learned. That one, I didn't see anything from you, that one.
Sorry, I didn't get to it.
Okay.
I'm
looking at him because the same way that we're expecting, we both of us need to, and maybe you can jump in certain things that you think about that are important. And then we're just gonna have open team discussion. Things that we think about, just tell us, right? Right on the spot. Yeah. All right. So there is a lot of things here. There's a lot of words. But what is liability? We, as designers and architects, we're liable for the breach of contract, tort of negligence, and then another point is under statute. Those are like what we are liable for with the client. So does anybody know what a breach, what that terminology means? Okay, exactly. So this is the reason why it's so important. Any project that you go in and you don't see a signed contract, stop what you're doing and make sure Darwin puts the signed contract in there for me. Okay, that's priority, very important. Because if you don't have a contract, then you don't have a responsibility, then you're not liable for these things. Does that make sense?
I can jump on that. Under the breach of contract, you're not liable. But just so you know, and he's gonna talk about negligence and under statute. There's other things that you can be liable, even if you don't have a contract. And I think that relates to under statute. It's like basically your duty as a professional. Like if you tell somebody something, even at a dinner table, oh yeah, you can put a header and do X and Y, and X, you're practicing. You're like, what? I'm just talking to somebody. You're practicing. Sadly, you're practicing. If they take you to court, you can lose for that. So you have to be careful that sometimes not to even give your opinion on certain things, because you may become it's like also financial advisors. Like if you're not a financial advisor, you shouldn't be giving people financial advice because they can sue you over that because you're practicing something else. Same thing with medicine. Giving somebody a Tylenol, it's actually considered practicing of medicine. You would like, what? Yeah, it is. So you're not a doctor. So, but nobody's going after you for time. But I'm saying technically,
yeah,
that's it.
Exactly. No, it's important. I'm glad that you jumped into that because you need to understand what you're liable for and this terminology so you don't get surprised later on. And unfortunately, we are in a country that I never thought that being in architecture meant writing so many emails, and be so careful what you say, how to say it, and who to say it to. So just keep that in mind because we are in a field that we're dealing with people's money. And when you deal with people's money, then you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, we don't have to go too far.
Yeah.
Red Bulls had to give $12 million to somebody because he went to court and says, Red Bull gives me wins. I didn't get wins. You're sued. $12 million, they have to settle it. Yeah. Yeah. Falsifying information. I bought that Red Bull thinking I was going to get wins.
Yeah.
And in court, they couldn't fight it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. That's the country we're in, right?
Yeah, very, very, very important.
So I'd rather say things like, I don't know, I'm not sure. I'll have to study that. It's beyond my scope.
Yeah.
We'll need an engineer for that. Things like that is dodging the bullet. Yeah. There are things that people are going to ask you, and you're like, don't answer it if you don't know. I don't know enough information to be able to answer that. That's dodging the bullet right there. Boom.
Very important. So on the professional liability can be approached under the following headings. I'm just gonna mention this one, a minimum standard of reasonable skill and care to be exercised in the discharge of professional duties carried under the contract. So you as the designer, when you read this contract, you need to be able to understand, okay, what is reasonable skills that I need to present to be able to fulfill this contract. And those are when, like, for example, Julio think about what is necessary to show you. With the project with Harvard, for example, Christian was like, you're showing too much drawings, you're showing too many sheets. Sheets are, the more you repeat something, the more opportunity you get to make mistakes. So that's why, like, when we try to show things in the drawings, like, try to be meaningful of that, when we are working in this. You can read this more in detail. I'm gonna send it so you guys have it. Then breach of contract. It's basically, I really want you guys to pay attention to this. If the architect does not perform their obligations on their contract, they will be committed to breach of contract, which is what we talk about. So make sure, like, when you are reading through this, through any contract, read what we put. If it is two design options, give them two design options. If it is one design option, make sure it's one design option. That will be able to tell you what you're actually responsible for. And be like, hey, by the way, we are already in option 3. We're already at a point. There was a client, that's a good point. There was a client, Richard. I don't know if you remember Richard. He was always moving, like, the project didn't move forward because you send them something, takes 2 months. Then he replied, and then, like, the communication was not there. So I actually had to break the contract and say, hey, by the way, you breached the contract because I specified this amount of time. And every time I was saying something, like, there's the communication is not there. You live in New York. I knew it was gonna be a difficult client. So I was like, yeah, don't want to work with you anymore. And then I put that sentence there.
Just make a point of that. Yeah, repetition is there.
Mm-hmm.
In the constitution, like, okay, so if it's something minor, like it's something that right? But when something is like, they're saying you a sketch of a major thing that changed the whole design, that's something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to let them know that it's additional, because the contract said 2 revisions.
Yep.
Half doesn't mean that.
Yep.
Something on.
Correct. So, any points you guys wanna make across? Does this make sense, what we're talking about, guys? All right. So then I got this diagram. I really like it because it kind of delineates, what the type of communication that we should have. If we hire civil engineers and structural engineers and consultants, the communication go directly with the owner, and Darwin knows this, AIA contracts, like that. The general contractor plays, it's in another hand, in this equation. Sometimes, architect and general contractor have communications, but if you look under here, we are responding to them out of courtesy. It's not that you are required to. You know what I mean? So you need to understand in the contract, like, okay, who are we under here? Who's making the decisions? And be able to address that. Sometimes the general contractor is the owner, or he's the one that you have contracts with, and the owner comes to where the general contractor is. You are responding to them out of courtesy. You're like, hey, by the way, I don't have a contract with you. We were under the contractor, and these one are the items that were added to that contract. Why is this important? Why is it important to understand the relationship between the recommendations?
Nicole, go ahead, Nicole. Say why is it important?
To whom and why we need to answer that. Sometimes we answer to so many people and we are not like legally. Okay, we don't need to answer legally to them. And if we answer something, then we're liable.
Correct. So, quick example, very simple example. If you are hired through the owner And the framer that is working here has a question regarding certain things. You know, you as a courtesy, you can reply to that, but you could say like, hey, you know, you should have a communications with the general contractor and talk to the owner. If the contractor asks you to change something in the drawings and you have a communication with the owner, before you do any changes, what do you think you should do?
Yeah.
Check with the owner. The owner is the first guy that you need to say like, hey, the contractor is asking me this, but we have a contract, owner. I need to send you an additional services or something to be able to make that change, you know, because of that communication. Does that make sense? Now, there are times when the owner is hired their own civil engineer, mechanical, and all of that, which is the case with Babu right now. You know, now what you're doing is in reality, you're supposed to connect with the owner, and then the owner, but he's, you know, all the communications, so it doesn't really, you know, affect on that end. Sometimes manufacture like lumberyard, same information and things like that, you still have a courtesy communication with them, but it's not live, it's not a contract with them. So sometimes they might tell you like, oh, you know, we're showing this in the drawings. You communicate that information with to the owner and be like, hey, by the way, the lumberyard is telling you this works for the application. You know, so it's very important to kind of know this relationship, guys. Very important. I have been in situations where like we get hired under the contractor, and then the owner wants certain things, and I have to tell him like, look, we're under the contract, which is what happens with, you know, Rich. Like I could send you a construction administration contract, and we can help you build the construction, but I'm not responsible. And you need to be able to know that information and be like, this is outside of what we agree. So, is this helpful?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Natalie no le sale la pantalla.
Oh, I don't know why. You need to share. Well,
Solo le sale el PowerPoint sin compartir.
Natalie, tú estás ahí. Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing, and then I'm gonna share again. ¿Lo ves, Natalie, ahora? Okay. Okay, perfect. Gracias. Gracias. Okay. Any questions on this diagram?
For the reason, the owner is the first person you have to comment in the contract or after.
Yeah, it depends, because the owner, it depends who you have a contract. That diagram is related to who you have a contract. Contract holder first. Yeah.
And the second, the owner. Okay.
Yeah.
The situation you explained about the general contract, that applies maybe when they're asking an extra, because sometimes they just have to clarify the question.
Yeah.
Even when the contract is never involved, they come after, they be like, oh, can you say the footage that you mean, like something that they clarify?
Yep.
That's the.
Which is fine, because you have the courtesy, professional courtesy to be like, hey, you know, this, you know, yeah, of course, this is what I meant, whatever. If a contractor comes to you and be like, oh, it's better if we do it this way, you know, you're showing this, but that way, then you have to communicate with the owner and be like, hey, you know, it's taking me a little bit longer time to do this. This might incur additional costs based on a contract and that kind of.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. I don't know if I want to share anything on this as well, but all right. So then, once again, this is going to be a quick test, but I think it's necessary for us to go through this. What I think it's wrong. Sorry, guys. All right. Just because there was something. Okay, so items to pay attention to, like category here, it's very important. First, read the contract, guys, please. Read the contract thoroughly. Very important. fully understand the scope of work. Sometimes, like, you know, I try to be very thorough with the contract, like, we are only going to be doing this because of that, you know, this is the scope of work. Very important you understand that concept, scope of work, because if you don't know a line, then people are gonna come to you with additional stuff that is not part of that scope. Very important, like I'm dealing with a church in Middleton, you know. We are only hired to do the fit up for a church. The building inspector comes back and asks, oh, I need calculations for the entire building, so I know that, you know, the parking, you know, that is required, you know, is appropriate for this fit up. And also I need a calculation for the plumbing fixtures, just to make sure that the common bathrooms could be usable for the church and also for this tenant that is using the home. So I did the calculations and then ended up being like, oh, we need to add another bathroom. So to the fit up of the church, because we cannot, you know, use that. So that additional time, who requested it? Who asked for those things? That was the inspector. That's out of your, you know, you did the more things that you can within the set of drawings. But that is an additional time that then the owner needs to understand, like, hey, by the way, this is additional time. It's not an additional request. What about if the building inspector requested items that should have been there? That's out. Okay, and how do you know that? How? Because no, why did it?
Just checking the code.
Checking what you are responsible to. That then goes back to the concept of like negligence. Negligence, not being able to like understand, like, you are required to do this. This is what we're paying for, which is why like zoning analysis, code analysis is so relevant.
So I have a question. Now, like the bathroom code will change. And it just changed in December, right?
Yeah.
And all the restaurant prices that we did before that,
Yeah,
and the owners, they've been taking time to apply.
yeah.
Big-
Now, if you haven't submitted, then you don't have, you cannot say that you're using that other code. You know, as a.
Oh, who is all?
You have to
Well,
communicate.
you have to communicate that to the owner and be like, this is
It's all set.
Yeah, absolutely. If they haven't applied, then you are not under the stipulations that you are under this code. If you haven't applied for that.
I guess in that case, if you need more time in order to work with clients, then you have to communicate it to the client and say,
And-
hey, so the code changed. And we had this before, now we have this, so we have to work more.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Even if it's been like that a year.
Well, but if they haven't tell you, then you are not liable for that.
Yeah, actually, you don't know if they applied or not.
Yeah.
It's not when it's a work thing.
Exactly.
Taking their time, that's on them, right?
Yeah, that's on them, absolutely.
So that's like, hey, been like, we finished 6 months ago.
If
Now
they-
we hear like, oh, the code changed.
Because
Yeah.
the contractors know like how long they have when the permit is done, how long they have to apply for it before things change or whatever.
Yeah, every situation is different, but yeah, there are certain times that.
It's not like unlimited that the person,
No.
like you finished 3 years ago and then they can go and submit.
And that's a good point, guys. Like, if a owner comes to you and he's like, oh, you did these drawings like 3 years ago, and now is when I have the money to do it, and you submit the plans, and then they got rejected. Well, why did they got rejected? Because it was additional things that they needed to do at that particular time. You know, so then you could be like, by the way, you know, this code applied 3 years ago. Now it's different.
So that should be something that we have to suggest to clients.
But that's the thing, you cannot control what they do, you know, you can mention it to them, but
Yeah, so but in the end, it's on their client.
yeah,
On the client. You
absolutely,
don't know when.
absolutely, absolutely.
So they'll do it in 2 months and then something changed that we don't.
Yeah. That would be the client, that wouldn't be you guys, you wouldn't be liable for that. All right, so research similar successful projects, very important, guys. every time you start a new type of project, a project that you are not, that you don't really know, make sure you ask around the office, like, hey, like for example, restaurants. If you have to do a restaurant, the first person I will talk to, Nicole, Julio. Hey, hey, what have you experienced? Oh, you need to do this, 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 pay attention on this, that. So, because they know successful projects that we have done in the past. So, anytime you have a project that you don't feel confident with, talk to us and the team. Hey guys, I'm working with this situation. Can you show me an example? We'll send you a bunch of samples. I have a bunch of samples on my folder of projects in case people ask. Very important, you know. Also, communicate via email. Sometimes people send you text messages, they call you, you know, after meeting discussions, follow up via email, please, please. Because email is creating a trace of communication, you know. So very important to respond via email. Before sending the email, read it more than once. You know, make sure like, you know, the person is the person, it's not like Mrs. and then it's a guy, you know, that kind of thing. Very important. Check your PDF, look through the sheets. Oh, I'm happy with this PDF. I can send it. Don't send it and be like, oh, I forgot this. Oh my God, let me send another email. That kind of thing. Check it twice, you know. Be concise with the information. Don't just say words and words and words when you send emails. Try to be concise in what you are trying to communicate. You know. All communications count in the core of law. What?
That's scary.
Yeah, it does, because like if there is an issue and we are into like, oh, you told me this, and there's no trace, then you're like, oh, when was that? What the call, when who you were talking to, all of that information. And when you send emails and you have a meeting, let's say you have a meeting in person in here, is the general contractor is involved, you and everybody. You need to do a summarize of, hey, you know, the contractor say this, we agree on this. Those are like professional things that we need to start doing, guys. Very important. And that applies to us that one too, you know, that applies to us as a, I think we need to do it. Team can see that too. I try to be very concise in communications, but it's always good to do that. After any call, same thing, just follow up via email. If not sure about something, just call the client. Like, let's say you are working in clients and you're trying to cover all the entire scope in the drawings. I forgot something. Like, hey, you know, you told me this in the meeting. Like, is that what you meant, right? Just a quick call, you know, and then follow up. Yeah, we agree on this. Just you know that you're being communicated about.
Just so you know, I'm actually doing that right this second. I got a phone call from a client that we did a project for. And he told me several things that made me shake because it relates to this, that he had to go before the board today for a hearing, and that they don't understand how those drawings were issued, whatever. Without getting into detail, I'm actually writing today at about 10 a.m. I received a phone call from such and such about such and such. I'm doing it right in a second as we're talking, because I'm like, what's going on? I don't like one. I want to memorialize. He basically said, I'm gonna file a complaint against your license or you do my drawings. And I was like, so I'm recopying all of that exactly as he said it. And then we'll follow up accordingly, because I don't know what he's talking about. No idea what he's talking about. So, but if you don't put it in writing, then it's like, it goes, right? So you have to, you know, I asked for facts too. By the way, in the phone call, I'm like, you got a letter, send me a picture of the letter. You got some comments from the building department, send me a picture of that. I don't know what that is. Once you send me that, let's do a Zoom meeting and take a look at it and understand, you know? So you have to be proactive too, you know, immediately be proactive. But if I don't write this email, I'll get 20,000 other calls and then I'll forget about it. You can't forget about these things.
Yeah, procrastination is that's a good point. Procrastination. If you feel there are many different types of people. We are into this field and we kind of can get to talk to a lot of people. if you feel that a client is like more on that edge, try to understand what kind of client you're dealing with. You know, when you're talking and meeting with them, you kind of can sense like, oh, this might be a difficult client. Let me make sure to have additional time, communicate a little bit better. You know, sometimes you don't know, but it's always good to be aware of those things. All right, then how does this applies to drawings and design? Well, number one, you need to be able to understand how the scope of work must be reflected in the drawings. So one thing is the contract, and then another thing is how you're going to fulfill that contract in drawing format. So if it is, I don't know, a renovation on the first floor, and in the contract we say, finish plans and RCP and all of that, you need to make sure like, okay, I need to show an RCP, need to show a finished plan, but the scope doesn't say that you're gonna pick all of the finishes, or whatever, all the light fixtures, exactly what they are. It just tells you need to place where they are, and that includes a switch, that includes like if there is a dimmer that the owner asks you, all of those things, you need to be able to understand the scope so you know where to, how to document that in the drawings. Fully understand the code requirements, zoning requirements applicable for your specific project. Sometimes even if you have working in the same town, even if you have worked in the same town before, zoning changed. So you need to make sure that you look online and confirm that it's exactly applied. Julio can tell you many things in Somerville. Somerville is like the nightmare of the nightmares. I don't know if you guys have seen the Somerville zoning code. I think Jose has seen it.
I've seen stuff that changed many times because the design didn't apply with the area, like a lot of things that it was even aesthetics, even that.
Yeah, they control the dormer size. Who can tell you? They control everything. So you need to be able to look at the zoning bylaw, understand what town, what is your scope, what you're trying to do, and how to appropriately show that in the drawings, But you're liable, guys. This is why Calvin and Marcos don't know everything. You can have a question or whatever, but you need to make sure you do your research, sit down, really research this information. We won't be able to, if a client comes to you and, oh, Marcos or Darwin said it's 10 feet setback, like, I don't know, you need to confirm that information, the zoning, the requirements. Does that make sense, guys? Number two? Yes. All right, and then please make sure you review the drawing several times before you send it. Prior to sending CAD files, make sure you send electronic release to consultants. We have a folder that has an electronic release. If you don't know that, you could either ask Nicole, Julio, I think you have sent that. You haven't sent that? Yeah, you need. It's basically saying like, hey, you're liable. I'm sending you this CAD file, but you need to do your own research and understand and go on site and do your things. Because what happens is like if let's say we are hired through the HVAC consultant, and we should send them CAD files, and he doesn't go and confirm that those items are there, and he based all his calculations and everything on our plans, and there is an issue, then it's like, oh, but I used your plans. Yeah, but but if you didn't confirm the dimensions, then you're trying to redirect the liability. That's what you're trying to see. Yeah, so that one is on our folder. It's on our folder. Actually, we could do it later. I'm gonna show you where it is. All lines count in a drawing. So what do I mean by all lines count? If you don't mean it, don't show it in the drawings. Very important. Sometimes we show like a line where the cabinets are, but you didn't talk to the owner that So that's what your intention. And then the contractor see it and he's like, oh, the architect is showing a line here. Is that a cabinet? But you didn't have that communication with them. So then they're pricing that cabinet, but the owner doesn't even know that they're pricing. So make sure like whatever you show in the drawings, you mean to do that. And I don't know if I want to jump on that or anybody. Do you guys have any samples of things that you are trying the drawings and then they ask you months later, like, oh, what do you mean about that? Or what is that about? You know? I don't know if you guys have any cases. We have cases where like, okay, good example. A contractor and was reviewing some of our drawings, and then they see in our typical details that we have sealed height of 7 feet, 4 inches, this and this and that, and then in the elevation we have like 7 feet. You know, that's when like you need to look at your details and make sure that you are not confusing people with what you're sending.
So don't put the details. You are not user.
Exactly. Details, guys, like, or template, it's like a mold for you to use it as neat. It's not like I'm gonna put the detail and then I'm gonna forget about it. For example, like if you're doing a metal roof, you know how our details just show like shingles and things like that? Then that doesn't apply because you're doing metal roof and you're gonna show those details. Probably not. You know how we have a detail and that. Make sure you look through it, and if you see a dimension that it's like weird, say see plans.
Yeah, all the basement details.
Or the basement details.
Sometimes there's not even work in the basement. They have all the basement opinion and it's like.
So I think this goes to the same phrase that Marcos mentioned earlier of being concise with what you say. If you're being very precise with your speech when you're writing, and I think this is kind of why we joke about Julio saying here, go, attach, but it's because at the end of the day, you have to say, and that's how he does his drawings. The mindset is the same. Every drawing set he reviews from people, he says to me, that one, too many sheets. Why so many things? Dominican architects generally, because we talk a lot most, also do a lot of drawings. You're like, it's just to look like we earned our hard money. Like we earned this money. Like, look, we earned it. There's so many pages. That's actually the worst thing that you could possibly do. Because you want the same thing with the speech. The more words you say, since English is our second language, the higher the chance that you're gonna make mistakes. High, like super high. Like if you write 10 paragraphs, likely you're gonna have 5 different grammars. If you only have to write 1 paragraph, that's essential to the point. That's it. So we always need our cover sheet, or code analysis, or life safety plan, existing demo and proposed, and that's it. Sometimes with that, we can finish the whole set.
Sometimes I've been saying like the other day I was like checking like interior renovation or like wall sections and sections of the building, and I was like, are you doing something new wall? No, it's just interior renovation.
Or interior.
I was like,
There's no
man,
point.
it's been 2 weeks of this and you're doing all this like
Yeah.
So and that just tells me one thing. We don't have self-awareness of what we know and what we don't know and what we're supposed to. That's it. If you read the contract, me and Mark was a great thorough with the things that we're supposed to provide. I take out a bunch of stuff and I just keep the simple thing. Now I'm even bundling up. It's like existing, then what proposed. One thing, 4 months. That's it. You know, and wall sections. I only do wall sections if it's needed. You will never see me do a wall section on a basement project or attic project. It's just finishing the wall. You're not gonna see me. Unless I want to show our values. You could even just say it on the plan, like, hey, provide our values out. And you know, so the less, the better. On most of my sets, I don't do finished profiles. Most of my sets, sometimes Julio does a combo where he shows lights, smoke detectors, and everything on the forefront. Like that's a light, and you're like, what? Because it's so simple. It's just a tiny little project. You don't have simply plan to show that. That's what you want to see. Because at a minute ago, we don't have to go too far. Cover sheet, code analysis, existing demo proposed. Done. I'm giving the same thing to people, I'm giving 15 pages. You're like, what? That was already done, finished, done, 1 day. She didn't even take 1 full day to do this. Like 3 hours, right? That's it. Honestly, I gave her the same day in person, she finished it the same day.
But that's not a good thing, guys.
What,
When
no,
you're
no, no,
not
what
tired-
I'm just saying is, no, it's not the fact that she did it fast.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking
I
about.
wanna make sure.
That's not what I'm talking about. It's not about speed. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the fact that she said here,
Yeah.
go, done. What she needed to say.
What are the criteria?
Exactly.
Why are you reading?
Even that's what my checklist do. Like me, like it says, like people follow the checklist, like why you don't actually mandatory. So it says meet with the supervisor to talk about what drawings you think are essential for this.
Yeah.
And I would want you to come with a list and say, hey, Marcos or Darwin, I think I'm gonna need this, and that. Go ahead. That's good. That's exactly right. And it even says on my checklist, a manager to provide a sample project. The sample project already will have that kind of list. It's like, that's it. Sample project says that we have X, Y, and Z. Things do change. So as you see things changing, that sample project may become outdated. And you're like, oh no, now we do X, now we need Y, like our values. People refer to our values, they're changed. You know, we actually have to get that book, the new energy. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. She said what she needed to say in 3 pages. That's it. There are sets that are 3 pages that may take you weeks to finish because they have a lot of detail, but they won't be 20 pages. You have to focus on the things that you need. We get those questions. Yes, the questions that we get are, well, there's no underpinning on this project. Why do I have an underpinning detail?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's no kitchenware. Where you have the cabinets details on the things like, oh, we haven't. It's like, no, there's no work on the roof. Where you have the eave. Inspectors that thoroughly look at our drawings, they get upset when they see this.
Yeah.
They get frustrated. They're like, what is going on in here? You know? So that said, it starts becoming a red flag on like, these guys don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're talking about. And guess what? You aggravate an inspector or anybody enough, they will file a complaint with the board. You're like, what? It's just becoming annoying. Like after some point, they're like, you know what? I'm upset with you. I'm done. You know what I mean? And that's it. It's not even the gravity of what you've done. It's the fact that you said things you should not say.
Yeah.
And the same thing, speech and drawings, because drawings is a form of communication.
Yep.
So the less you say, the better it is. That's my say on that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, try not to duplicate information, you know, in the drawings. Would you want to say something?
I just want to say that even though we need to be precise, it's important, going back to the comment we had about making sure we comply with the contract, if lighting, coordination and all of that, it's in the contract, then we have to show.
Yeah.
Even though obviously in a concise way.
Yeah.
Just we don't have a say to show it because it is in contract.
Yeah.
If we don't have it, then we promise something. That they
Correct.
You know what is the problem with the thing happening? They put RCP plans. It's not in plans. That's what RCP is.
Different.
What do you mean?
So do you think?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, RCP ceilings. They
Yeah.
show ceiling heights.
Yeah.
Soffits, all that kind of things.
Yeah.
Like,
So do you think?
But the lighting and the ceiling plans go together actually.
so
Well, I think the wall section shows what the ceiling heights are gonna be, no?
If you have the
Right,
right
so that is it. You know what? We should put, I always put lighting,
lighting plan, that's cool.
like, if you feel, because RCP is another thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's.
Well, I've seen it both, to be honest.
I've
Yeah.
seen it both,
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
because like when you work with consultants, they have a lighting plan. We have an RCP where we show the lighting for coordination purposes.
I just feel like one day somebody's gonna like,
Yeah.
By the way, can we do a lighting plan and coordination plan? Sometimes.
That's how he does the outlets.
Like coordination. is like
that's why I put lighting plan,
three things.
outlets and lights.
Exactly, exactly, all together.
Because in the end, the electrician is going to do it.
Yeah, they're going to do it, exactly. Yeah, and make sure like for example, like I like it separated, the only reason is because outlets relates to equipment. And like if they don't see that you have a laundry, for example, then you know, if you have a dedicated outlet, you don't see that there's.
It's like the criteria to say. It's a new house.
Exactly.
But if it's like
This is
a
more for me.
2 bedroom and a kitchen.
Exactly. You need to be able to, guys, once again, like, you are the designer, like, you need to be able to understand, like, oh, what should I be showing it? How am I gonna show it? What is the better way that I can communicate this information, you know? Also, on that, the electrical, if there's something you don't know, coordinate with equipment for, power recommendations and requirements. Always try to redirect the liability to others, because you are not liable for everything, you know, so make sure you mention those type of things in the drawings. Very important. And then, once again, if you are unsure about dimension, I prefer you spend the time to go back than like later coming back. So just go, you know, oh, I'm not sure about this dimension. My drawings are not aligning. I prefer you going back again than, you know, then things don't work properly. Modify template as needed. We're already talking about that. Does that make sense, guys? And then these ones are just a quick sample, and just, I'm just gonna go briefly about this. You know, so we were hired to do a dormer, couple dormers, the front and the back, so that's the system, that's the proposed. Client seemed really nice, very, very nice. All the drawings were really good. You know, we were only hired to do the attic rental, so we only included, you know, field measurements for the second portion of the second floor in the attic. You know, project went great, you know, a year later, clients will come back to us, and they start seeing shiftings in the existing house, you know, and cracks and things like that. We know that when we were on site, the owner actually mentioned that the house has, you know, it's an old home. So you don't think about these things, you know what I mean? Later on, you know, now we are sending emails, what is our scope, what is not our scope. Some of the things that we did learn is that if you are doing an attic rental, it makes more sense to measure the entire house, even if it is not portion of the scope of work, because then you don't understand how the loads are being transferred down to the basement. The second floor actually had walls that were not aligning to your low bearing. So it was kind of causing things, you know, and we're still talking about this to this day. So things like that, you need to kind of pay attention to, you know.
Is that the project of
Which one?
It was the only one,
The
so
only
yeah.
one, yeah. So this is one, it's still ongoing.
The biggest headache that we've ever had on a project
Ever.
is those 3 little dormers.
Believe it or not, you know, so you need to like, in lessons learned with this, every time now I get an attic, I tell the owner, we need to measure the entire house. It's part of, like, we need to understand how this is put together. You know, make sure, like, if you feel uncertain about certain things with the structure, we need to hire a structural engineer. Please contact a structural engineer to be part of this project. You know, that way you are redirecting. Does that make sense, guys? It's quite simple one, but it's something to pay attention to.
That's another reason why we take a lot of pictures of the initial existing condition of the
Very
entire
important.
house, so that we can show what the existing was versus. It's kind of like surgeons too. That's why surgeons, I guess it's the same thing. They do keep record of everything because they get sued a lot. Like surgeons get sued a lot. That's why it's very expensive to get surgery. So you have a record of everything, all the communications. There are clients out there that are like wolf in sheep clothing, they call it. Like it looks like a man, like a little sheep, but it really is a wolf. So you don't know who those are. So you have to always be careful how you manage yourself. Very, very careful. Clients are not your friends. None of them are your friends. You see them outside of the work, and then keep going. Like that's it. And they are not your friends. That's it. Honestly, shit goes down, and they're gonna be the first ones after you. So just make sure that you follow all of those protocols. When in doubt, again, just like now before we were doing a lot of structural. Now we're taking it off of our chest. We're delegating that. We're saying things like we got to hire a third-party structural engineer. Even if it is on our scope, we still have to say we need a third-party structural engineer.
And we changed the language, like, instead of saying like the structural plans, like framing plans, so it didn't feel like, and be open and be like, hey, by the way, I'm showing framing plans, but if the building inspector comes back and he wants to say structural engineer, we are not structural engineers, to be honest. Communication, emails, always the project number, what the actual information in the email is, project number, address, existing conditions, project number, confirmation of dimensions, meeting, coordination meeting, always have a title, very important.
The date.
And the
We'll
dates,
try.
very important, very important. This one was a simple one, but I do want to mention it. We were hired to kind of remodel this little house almost down the cave. And then this is the framing that was done. So the example on this one, it's, oh, well, we were hired to do that, Julio. These items was really low and they renovated the entire thing. But the point is, in our drawings, we show an interior elevation that clearly indicates the angle roof to be cathedral, a cathedral, But in the RCP, on the light, in the RCP, we didn't show really that it was gonna be cathedral. And what happened, guys? Well, the contractor built everything to that height. Then the owner comes and calls me. Oh, I'm freaking out. The contractor is saying that we are not, it was supposed to be that in the drawings there was no cathedral and like all of this and that, and like they already frame it and all of that. And I was like, well, I went inside the interior elevations and I'm like, oh, well, it clearly indicates that it looks like it's cathedral, but we didn't mention it, that it's gonna be cathedral. And the owner, it's like, well, but it should have been in the drawings, like, but we ended up resolving the situation. But things like that, if an owner is telling you it's gonna be cathedral, make sure you show something in the drawings that indicates that area is gonna be. Does that make sense?
Do you guys understand the implications of cathedral versus no cathedral? Structurally, it's completely different. Because they rely on putting the insulation on the flat ceilings if they're not gonna have cathedral. So if they do, that's one implication. And the structural is easier because the actual ceiling joists act as part of the diaphragm for the structure.
Yeah.
So it is basically what this guy said, a truss. It becomes a truss. If you don't have that, then this guy needs a ridge beam by default. And that's gonna be a big ass long ridge beam that we need to size. So that's completely different.
Or you need color ties.
And they don't, color type, but they don't know those implications. So you got to show them at this design stage because you don't want to be designing something that's not going to hold, because then they're going to see the picture and be like, you showed me that it was going to look like that and it's not going to have a rich beam. Even if you don't know the size at the design stage, you should show it. If you know the color ties are going to be needed, you should show it. How do you know that? Experience.
Yeah.
Experience. If not, you wouldn't know that stuff.
Yeah, if it is going to be cathedral, make sure you mention it, in your sections, guys. Like, I just don't want to see a section just to have a section. If you're showing me a section, you need to tell me information. Be meaningful in certain connections that you're like, I really want to show this moment in the house. Don't just show sections to show sections. You know what I mean? If you're going to take the time, make sure you are documenting that.
And we've provided books. So there was a framing book I shared with you guys. It's not like just because like, oh, Darwin is just sharing a book. I would want you guys to understand how these things come together. Me and Natalie have spent a lot of time on the existing condition stage. And you're like, why? Because I want her to know how construction is done in the United States. And I'm literally talking to her from the foundation. And Jose is like, even on the massing, why do you do that? Because that's going to change. I'm like, no. I'm trying to teach her how the slab goes, how the wall goes, how the band joist goes, everything. I even tell her all the time, I want to see sketches by hand of how that stuff works. Because if it's shown wrong, it's not going to work, right, in the future. Now, basically, by doing existence, she would know how to do a proposal.
Yeah.
You can just do one like that, right?
And nowadays, guys, like most of us already have seen some of your projects, hopefully, built. I think Jose, you've seen some of the projects.
Many of you.
Nicole, you have seen your projects. You have seen your project. One you haven't seen on. He doesn't even go on site to check anything.
But you've seen them because I saw your picture.
Well, But if you want.
He doesn't want to see them.
I know, but I honestly tell Darwin all this all the time. The moment you see something and you understand it a different way. So please make sure, like, if you don't know how something is put together, let us know and we will schedule a meeting with any other projects that we're framing right now. You know, it's very important, guys. So that way it goes back to be meaningful with whatever you're showing the plans. And as I say, open to discussion. I think we all added something. Was this helpful?
Very helpful.
Okay.
All right, and this was recorded. You can always refer to it. There's a lot of these recordings in our YouTube channel, the private version, the Flow Design Architectural Education. So just go that one and listen to it if you need to. Make sure to, like, when in doubt, ask the questions. We've been very lucky, and that's true. Meaning that things may start waking up that we haven't seen for the last 7 years, right? So we just have to prepare. The goal is to stop them from coming by what we produce, how we produce it, and how it gets out. So there are things we don't even know ourselves, me and Marcos and Julio. Like, we learn it. Every single day we learn it. You know, so that's it. Always ask the questions. We're never gonna get upset for you asking the questions. They're not stupid questions. All of those questions are gonna prevent us from getting in trouble. They're gonna keep us in business, because one little stay, one little loss, one little thing, God forbid, can wipe a company away, right? Literally done. So we just have to make sure that, you know, staying on a good note. We've done great so far. We're just gonna keep the same thing going and getting better and better at the things that we're doing, right? And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very Thank you, Nando.
Hey.
Bye. Bye.